Hey welders, ready to upgrade your gear and save some serious dough in the process? The Miller Build with Blue savings and rebate program has you covered. Find amazing deals and cashback rebates on a wide range of Miller products, from welders to plasma cutters and everything in between, all backed by our 3-year warranty. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Take advantage of the Miller Build with Blue program now. Visit us online or stop by your nearest Miller distributor today to start saving.
Welcome to another episode of the Strange Motion Way podcast. I'm your host, Tim Strange, along with my co-host,
Carrie Strange.
Did you forget your name there for a minute?
Something popped up on the screen, though.
You need your name on your shirt, Carrie.
I do. I do.
So tonight we have our guest. He started the Street Rodder Magazine Road Tour program in 1996 after discussion at the 95 SEMA show with then editor of Street Rodder, Tom Vogely, which he is scheduled to come up on a guest appearance here soon.
Great guest.
And he has driven over 300,000 miles in hot rods during this time. If my research was correct, you were possibly at Woodstock and the Evel Knievel Snake River jump. How rad is that?
Well, thanks a lot for. I mean, those were all my bombs that I was going to throw at you. Now, go ahead.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about all this. And if you listened to the Josh Shaw episode a few weeks ago, we talked about you having about the best hair in hot rodding. And Josh said today to make sure I thank you for everything you did for his career. We talked about a luncheon when you guys got to Southern California that he met so many guys that is still involved in his career. So welcome tonight, Jerry Dixey.
Thanks, folks. Yeah, we'll circle back to that Josh Shaw thing. Josh, a good fella. He was a bit of a young whippersnapper, I guess, when he hooked up with me. But he told you the story, and we won't repeat it, about Wade Hughes, the flame guy from Cincinnati. You know Wade. Mm-hmm. Josh was working with Wade, and the Cincy boys, the Cincy Street Rod guys, Oni and Opie and those folks down there, they saved our season in 2001 because the car wasn't really done that well. That was the first year that we had taken an original car, a factory car, and modified it to make it a hot rod, make it a street rod. And the fellow that, and I don't want to step on his toes because I don't think he's still around, but the fellow down in South Carolina that was doing the work, he took 4 weeks off during the construction because Dale Earnhardt got killed. And all due respect to Dale Earnhardt, but you can't take 4 weeks off of a build, you know. And I love Dale too, but you need to keep.
Brother took a day off.
At least.
Yeah, you need to keep moving. Anyway, the Cincy guys. They saved us, and Wade and the gang down there, they really jumped in and saved that year. So Josh was one of the fellas on the team, and Wade said, hey, this young fellow, and he probably was in his 20s then, he wasn't a kid, but he wanted to go. So I said, well, God, I don't know. Have him send me an email, and we will start a correspondence. I mean, like I was going to qualify him, right? So long story short, and I know Josh told you the basis of the story.
That's about when emails started, right? Mid-90s?
Well, this would have been 2001.
Oh, okay. By the time that he came on that trip. Okay.
Yeah, by the time he came on. In fact, see, you're going to prompt me to all these stories, so if I go long, just say, shut up, and let me ask you another question. But the early days of the tours, I would do blogs. That was, remember blogs? Mm-hmm. And I would do blogs. And my cohort out in California would be my webmaster, Nick Licata. You know Nick?
I do.
From Chevy magazines and things.
Yep, all Chevy Performance.
Right. Nick was my webmaster, so I would send him my blogs, and from the road each day. I mean, we'd be taking pictures and sending them in to him, and he would load them up on the Street Rodder magazine website. So we had one particularly good blog one day, and out in the morning drivers meeting in the parking lot, I said, hey, man, I posted a good blog, got a lot of your pictures, a lot of your cars. Who brought their laptop? Nothing. Stares. Go, okay, I get it. You know, you can't carry your laptop around. I said, there's a business office inside. If you go in there and punch up Street Rodder Web, you could look at it. Stares. I said, who has a computer at home? Guy in the back, true story, raised his hand and he said, my wife's friend at church, her son has a computer. And I thought, wow, we are a few steps away yet from computer land for old hot rod guys, right?
My great uncle is still that way. He don't have a cell phone. He don't do computers, the internet, nothing. So yeah, he refuses.
Well, I used to, I did a column every month for NSRA Street Scene, and I did, of course, my stuff in Street Rodder. And I wrote a column once about what it took to get hot rod guys to accept the internet and not worry that they were going to get their long distance carrier changed. Okay, I mean that was their like fear. Mm-hmm. So they found out that there was a swap meet in a world that runs 24/7 and it never rains, and it's called eBay.
Yep.
And so they were getting their grandkids. Charlie, tell me how to get on this eBay thing. And once they found out they could buy deuce parts on the internet, they were rolling. But at any rate, that was that story. But Josh got in. We were, I was fine with him. I went down to, I'm out of Youngstown, so it was a 5-hour drive to Cincinnati. We get in the car and we make it as far as Memphis. And again, I'm on reruns for his story, but I go, what's that noise? And he goes, that's the rear end going out. I go, can you fix that? Because as he told you, I'm not a mechanic. I'm a yapper, and I'm a salesman and a businessman. And I said, can you fix that? And he goes, well, if we can, he said, if we can get it up on a rack. And, I go, I got a buddy that's got a rack. And he, as he told you, it was Vernon Walker. Mm-hmm. And have you ever been past Walker's place or been to Walker's place?
Yeah, many times.
We pulled in that Texaco gas station and put it up on that lift from, the 1959 Texaco gas station. And Josh and Vernon took it out and changed the bearings in it. And, they had a buddy that, Vernon had a buddy that had a press, and he ran on. I'm just kind of looking and taking pictures, and they got it done. And we started out down on the road, and I looked at him and I said, good having you aboard, brother. We're fine.
So to clarify, this isn't like a working mechanic shop Texaco station. If you leave heading west out of Memphis, you get across the river, you're into Arkansas.
It's actually in Arkansas, yeah.
Yeah, a handful of miles on the left, there's this beautiful big ranch house, a couple shop buildings, and there's an old gas station back there that Vernon assembled, this old Texaco gas station on his property with all vintage stuff in it. So it's not like, we turned by the McDonald's and went to the working Texaco. It's his like little mini museum, but it's a functional shop. So if anybody goes back, like, I always want to know who lived there. Well, that's where Vernon Walker lives.
Do you know the backstory on the gas station?
I knew some. I don't know. I don't remember all of it.
Well, it just and again, I've got a story for everything, so I apologize in advance. This is just part one, by the way. Vernon saw an ad in I don't know, some newspaper somewhere, a collector thing, and it said Texaco gas station for sale. Well, he, like I, and like you guys, collect little things, and he thought it was a Texaco gas station, like a Mark's Texaco gas station. Called the guy and he says, how much is that gas station? The guy goes, $10,000. Vernon goes, what? Why is it $10,000? He goes, because it's the whole gas station. This station had been built near Joplin, Missouri in I don't have the years for sure, 63, let's say. And I-44 came down through from Chicago going down to Oak City, right? And there was no exit where this guy had put up this brand new gas station. So, what do we do? We're not where they get off for gas. And so he disassembled it and put it in 3 semi-tractor trailers with the idea that he was going to reassemble it. It was one of those pressed metal porcelain deals that bolted together.
Lustrums or lustrums or something is what them. They sold houses too that snapped together like that too.
Yeah, they put them all. They built them on site. So the fellow's idea was that he was going to put it up somewhere else. Well, as we all know, life rolls on. stuff happens, and he never got around to it. So Vernon bought it. And he showed me, he came to me, we were in Knoxville one year, and he came to me and he said, Dixie, I got my station done. I go, okay. He goes, let me show you the pictures. And he started flipping pages in this photo album, and I said, that's amazing. And it had the water fountain. I go, where'd you get the water fountain? It was there. I go, man, I'm seeing the men's and women's keys to the restrooms. Where'd you get those? It was there.
Wow.
I go, you had toys in the cabinet. Where'd you get those? He goes, he finally, he got tired and he goes, Dixie, watch my lips. It was all there. I go, okay, buddy. And it was everything was there of the period. Now, you collect stuff, I collect stuff. We would not be able to recreate a Texaco station from that era the way his looks, because even though we could secure the pieces, they would be aged differently, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
You know, you got one carton's looking old, one of them's, it's shop worn, it's shelf worn, and you would put it all together, and it kind of would be a hodgepodge. Man, this thing is, you walked in a time warp. You walked into 1963, and I stopped in 1996. I stopped the first time I had been there, and I stopped there in that tour coupe that Debbie Wall owns now, and he goes, "Pull her up. I'll gas you up," and you've got a sign there that says 35 cents a gallon. And it's a functioning gas station. He got gas in the tanks. They're above ground tanks, but he's got gas in the tanks, and he pumped me, and he wrote me a bill. He goes, "I'm gonna let you sign this. I'm opening an account for you here." And I signed it, and he just put it up on the desk and laughed. Vernon is a good fellow. I spent a lot of time and a lot of miles on the road traveling with those guys, and I'll jump ahead of my story here, and then we'll get to when I was a little kid. But as you may know, and by the way, it was 500,000 miles I traveled. That article that you referenced.
I think that was an older article that I found. Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. I attended 111 consecutive NSRA events in the United States, consecutively driving a hot rod. Now, that's a lot of Bob Reynolds, my friend.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of Wings Callahan. I do a good Wings Callahan.
We've had Wings on here too. Wings is great. So you did every NSRA show each year that you were on the road.
Yeah, for 10 years, all 11 shows.
Wow.
In a hot rod. So the magazine would build me a hot rod. But at any rate, you want to go back to when I was a kid?
Yeah. Hold on.
You would ask me what my first car was, and I'm sorry, I can't sit still. You know that I bounce around.
Hold on just a second.
He ate something back in the bedroom when I came home from work.
Okay.
Sorry, we got a
Yeah.
cat getting sick.
Yeah, we got a cat not feeling good tonight, I guess. It's our little cat. He ate something he wasn't supposed to. So.
Well, prayers for the cat, but if I could see Carrie doing little pushes on his chest in the background, we'll kind of pause. We'll pause for a minute if it's serious.
I'm just cleaning up puke, so it's nothing exciting.
So yeah, let's go back to little Jerry Dixey. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Canfield, Ohio, northeastern Ohio, midway between Cleveland and Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And it was Ozzie and Harriet, man. 1951. I'm 73, so it was 1951 I was born. Dad got home from World War II, married the pretty girl, and had me. And then 2 years later, my brother was born. But you asked me about my first car. I had my first car when I was 6 years old, and it was a 1948 Pontiac station wagon made by the Murray Pedal Car Company.
Wow.
And that comes back later on in my life, as you know, the pedal car thing, and that's kind of how I got hooked up with Street Rodder. But that was my first toy, my first car, and I've still got pictures of it. And I think I found a wheel in my dad's basement. But I born there in Canfield, grew up there. My dad was a maintenance mechanic for General Electric. He worked on those machines that built incandescent light bulbs, filament light bulbs, and he was an ace on those. In fact, he retired and he was retired for about 5 years. They closed the plant here in Youngstown, and he was retired. And he called me one day and he goes, They want to talk to me up in Cleveland. The headquarters for the lamp division wants to talk to me. What do you think they want? My dad's asking me, what do you think they want? I go, Dad, they probably found out you took 6 light bulbs home in 1960 and you're in trouble. He goes, shut up. I go see what they want. Turned out they were putting a team of 10 of their aces on these machines. General Electric had sold machines to China, and the Chinese couldn't figure out how to work them. Mm-hmm. So they put their 10 ace mechanics from around the United States and flew them to Shanghai, China to stay for a month and teach them how to work these machines. And my dad goes, what do you think I should do? I go, well, 2 things. How much are they going to pay? And he goes, $50,000 for the month. They go, pretty good money for would have been 19, probably 84. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, good. Here's what you got to do. And he goes, what? And I said, tell him Mom has to go too. He goes, why does Mom have to go? I go, because I don't want to turn on the nightly news and see some Chinese guy caning you because you throttled him because he wouldn't listen to you. Mom needs to go be there, calm you down. So anyway, that was my early life. But I'm gonna rattle off some of the things that I did, and I'm gonna watch your face light up. When I was in high school, I was the afternoon manager of the slot car track in my town.
Oh, awesome!
Now, how cool is that?
I really want a slot car track at the shop. I got an upstairs room. I want a slot car track up there so bad.
There's guys there's my road tour guys, every once in a while they'll talk, hey, did you race slot cars? And I say, oh yeah, we used to do 24-hour enduros with 4-man teams and all that. Slot cars, you got to in 1966 and 67 and 68, man, that was the thing. Mm-hmm. That was my want list for Christmas is a champion of Chamblee, Georgia, Stubby Can, a motor. They made the hot motors, and it was a whole big thing. So I did that. I sold soda pop at the local speedway. My dad was obviously a mechanic, as I said, and he had my great-grandfather's 1926 Model T Ford Wood station wagon, woody-bodied station wagon, that was on my great-grandfather's farm in Milan, Ohio. And in 1948, my great-grandfather drove it. It was a 26 Model T Ford station wagon. Drove it from Milan, Ohio, which is up around Sandusky, up around the drag strip in Ohio. Drove it all the way to Youngstown. And that was a hell of a journey, even in 1948 in a Model T. But it sat in a barn, and my dad restored it. In 1959, my dad restored that car, and he and 9 other guys started the Model T Ford Club of Mahoning County. So I grew up chugging along in a Model T when I was a kid. We went to car shows. And have you ever been in a T? You ever been in a real Model T?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever driven one?
No, I rode in one when I was younger. There was a bunch of Model T Club guys around where I grew up in Illinois.
They are so hard. They are so difficult to drive. I mean, it's so different from what we're used to. Mm-hmm. There's a brake pedal, a reverse pedal, and a low and a high, and that's the 3 pedals. The gas is on the steering wheel, and the spark advance is on the steering wheel. So you've got to really know. I mean, people of the time knew. Mm-hmm. But my famous
as
Model
they say,
T.
have you seen that online? It's like back in the day, the owner's manual of your car used to teach you how to adjust the valves and rebuild the brakes. Now the owner's manual remind you not to drink the battery acid from the battery.
yeah.
Not sure we got smarter as a whole.
I think so. Well, my story about the Model T, and by the way, I'll go back to this. I helped my dad restore that car. Now, understand, I was in 1959, 8 years old, 9 years old. And we used something that's probably been outlawed in every country in the world to strip. My great-grandfather had painted all the wood with yellow enamel paint. What? Well, I mean, that was the yellow old car. As it turned out, it was brilliant. It was the best thing he could have done. I'm sure he wasn't thinking. Every bit of wood in that car, and by the way, I still have the car, but every bit of wood is the original wood from 1926.
Because the paint preserved it, didn't it?
Oh, sealed it right up.
But we had to get that. My dad worked on a farm when I was younger for a lot of years, and we painted a lot of stuff yellow because allegedly they knew somebody that worked at the Caterpillar plant and could sneak paint out of the paint. So there was farm trucks that was Caterpillar yellow, and tractors that weren't Caterpillars that were Caterpillar yellow. And
That's fun. Well, yeah, hey, that might have been the case. Not sure where Gramps got the paint, but it was on there and it was thick. And we used zip strip. Did you ever hear of zip strip?
mm-hmm.
Got to be illegal. It's got to be the most
Oh yeah.
toxic stuff. You would brush it on with a brush, and instantly before your eyes, and it would start to bubble up. Well, then of course you take a wire brush or you take a scraper, paint scraper, and you scrape what's bubbled up. Well, I'm a kid in my little white T-shirt, and I'm helping Dad, and I'm getting this bubbled up paint off, and it's going on my arms, and it's killing me. It's burning me up. But you're an 8-year-old kid, a 9-year-old kid helping your dad on his old car. You ain't gonna go, Dad, this hurts. So he finally, thank goodness, he looked over at me. He goes, don't your arms hurt? I go, they're killing me, Dad. He picked me up by the collar and he threw me in the kitchen. It was an attached garage we were working in, probably toxic fumes there. And he goes, Barb, wipe his arms off and put him in a long sleeve shirt. And then we went back to work. But that was that was my helping my dad. But that's a cool car. We're going to donate it to the local fairgrounds. I think they have a carriage museum, and it would fit in well because it's a great transition vehicle with the wooden body carriages. I was always known in town as, hey, you're the guy whose dad has the car that's in all the 4th of July parades. So I was a junior in high school. Now, Dad always drove the car. I didn't drive the car. I didn't know how to drive it. And I was a junior in high school, and the pretty girl came up to me and said, your dad's got that car that's in the parade, right? I go, yep. She goes, how would you like to take the homecoming queen and her court down the football field at homecoming? When? Friday. I go, sure. So I went home and I go, Dad, you need to teach me how to drive this car. So we went down to the fairgrounds. Was close. We went down there and he walked me through it, and we were on way, and it was typical small, 5,000 people in this town. It's a typical small town. And everybody in town was there on Friday night under the lights, right? And it was the homecoming procession, and all the pretty girls were in my Model T, and the Model T. And I started off on one end at one goalpost, coming down the field. And if you remember when you're riding it, you go from low to high. As soon as you get the revs up, and then you pop it, and it goes into the high gear. There's 2 gears, low and high. I got to that 50-yard line and let my foot up, and it shifted into high, and I went, yes. And it was fine. We made it to the next goal line at the end of the goalpost there, and you would have thought I had scored the winning touchdown. I was excited. I was good, but I've still got that car. Like I said, Dad was always mechanically minded. He gave me a Clinton motor, 4-stroke Clinton motor. You know what a Clinton motor is. They've got that was on lawnmowers. Okay. And that was my motor. And I had a go-kart that had that for power that I built, and I had a mini bike, and I still have on my leg. If I could get my leg up here, I'd show you. I've got a 5-inch scar on the lower part just above my ankle from when I was probably 12, and I got that mini bike going, and I was so excited. But it was back in the day when they didn't have a guard where you put the rope. When you went to start it, there was no guard on that. It was just a tooth hanging out there, and you put the rope around it and get it started. I going down the road, and I laid my leg down on that, and it cut right through my pants, and it laid me open. I swear to this day I can see the bone. I don't know that I could. But I got home, and I go, Mom, Dad was working swing shift. He was working afternoons. And I said, Mom, we got a problem here. She goes, what's the matter? I go, look. And I pulled my pant leg up. Mom didn't drive, but the neighbor lady did. So they took me to the local doc. They called the local doctor. I mean, is this Mayberry or what? They called the doctor, and he goes, Barb, bring him out. We're just finishing supper. We'll take a look. Cleared off their kitchen table, threw me up there, and stitched me up with what looks like, and I can still see around the scar. He must have used fishing line to stitch me up, right? So I was on crutches for a couple of weeks. It was a pretty bad cut. But I hobbled in the backyard, and there was an old tree stump back there, and I bolted that Clinton motor on this tree stump. And I would go back on crutches. It was the summertime, and I'd start that thing up and just rev it up. And the neighbors, I'm sure the neighbors went, "Man, that kid is nuts." It's my motor. I just wanted to hear it. But then I got into motorcycles. So I've gone from the manager of a slot car. I booked rock and roll bands too. That's how the Woodstock story came in. But I went from the slot car track, and then we booked rock and roll bands, and then I opened up a motorcycle shop when I was in college. I was going to Youngstown State University, and I would like to say I built motorcycles, but we're going back to I'm not really a mechanic. I sold parts for motorcycles, and I had some guys, some of my buddies that worked with me, that we built some choppers. We ruined a whole bunch of motorcycles, if you remember. I'm going to put it on you here. How old are you, Tim?
I'm 53, but my dad, before he got into Tri-5 Chevys, was a chopper guy. He built a chopper over the winter every year. My uncle did choppers, was a custom painter guy.
So you can relate. Yeah, you can relate that. You can relate to it. The shocks. No, we don't need those shock absorbers in the back. Those are just stupid. Take them shocks off and put a hardtail on that frame.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it looks cooler. I was a British guy. I had Triumphs. Always had Triumph 650s. That was my bike. A lot of the guys had Harley Davidsons, but we kind of specialized in Triumphs and BSAs. In fact, Triumphs and BSAs have kind of seen a resurgence in the rockabilly boys. They like some of that British stuff. Mm-hmm. And my theory is that all their daddies ride Harley electric glides, and so they just want to rebel, so they ride Triumphs and BSAs. That might be the thing there. But we did that for a while, and then in 1976, Marianne and I, and you guys have probably seen Marianne or met Marianne, and she's been my partner for 50 years, but we opened up a motorcycle shop. We opened up a van shop. The motorcycle shop, we closed that down, and we morphed into a motorcycle.
So before we get into the van stuff, okay, I should know this. You've already been to Woodstock?
Yeah, it was Woodstock in 1969.
Let's go back. You just briefed over the rock and roll stuff. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, that was fun. I booked rock and roll bands for the local schools. I knew guys that were musicians, and the reason that Woodstock was so popular back in the day was it was going to be in Woodstock, New York, and Bob Dylan was going to be there. And looking back, you go, well, Bob, all due respect to Bob Dylan, but back then it was a big deal. And the word was that Dylan was going to be there. And okay, so I sent my $24 for three $8 a day tickets. That's how much the admission was. I still got two of the three. I don't know. I must have ate one of them. Did something with one of them because they weren't taking tickets. But we got the tickets, and we went across Pennsylvania on what is now Interstate 80. And we went, two of my buddies in a 64 Ford Falcon, and drove all night and woke up on, this was Friday morning. We had made it to the Pennsylvania-New York state line, and we got to that famous picture where the traffic is all going one direction and it's stopped and they're all on the side of the road. We were in that. I'm going, oh, Jesus. So we're stopped, AM radio. Me and my buddy are sitting on the hood. My other buddy that owned the car, he's behind him. He's just sitting. We're not moving. So a long hair walks by. And by the way, we had just gotten out of high school. There weren't a lot of hippies there. The movie showed a lot of hippies, but they were mainly high school kids and young college kids. So I see this guy walking by, and he's carrying a bag of groceries. And I thought, okay, well, he's been somewhere, and he knows where he's. I go, how far is it up here? He said, it's probably a good 2 miles. And I go, well, we're never going to make it. We haven't moved in the last 2 hours. He goes, give me your ride. I'll show you how to get in. I go, huh? He goes, fire it up and let me ride with you and I'll get you in. I said, okay, fire it up, Sneak. That was my buddy's name, Sneak. Fire it up. And he started, and the kid goes, cut right across his cornfield. Just go right across the cornfield. It was cut down. It was already harvested or whatever. It was down. So we go down here. We come to a road. And he goes, turn left. Okay. So we turned left, and we're coming along on this road, and the traffic was a ways away from us the other way. And I looked over, and I saw what was the bowl, what was the hill, right? And it was multicolored halfway up, and then it was green. And I go, what is that? And he looked at me, he goes, people, man. I go, okay, it's people. And that was the hillside. That was the hill. And we were on the back side of the stage. And it was filling up as we were watching because people were coming from everywhere. And it's, and so we ended up finding, we just burrowed that falcon into a field and got out and made our way up that side road where Yasgur's farm was on the right. It was all Yasgur's farm, but that silo, I'm referencing pictures you might have seen from the movie. The silo was on the right, and we walked in, and we've been driving all night, and we were beat. And this is way before getting high for at least high school kids. It wasn't like we were buzzed or drunk, anything like that. But we were dead tired. So I sat down and just laid back and fell asleep. And what woke me up about an hour later was about 100,000 people, and Country Joe McDonald was saying, "Give me an F," and everybody else F, and you know the song, "Give me an F, give me U, give me C, and K." What's that spell? And I went, "Holy crap, man! I'm not in Canfield anymore. This is somewhere else." And we sat there and saw it all the things that you saw in the movie. That was all true. And it rained on Friday night, but not the rain that you saw in the movie, but it sprinkled, and it started back up on Saturday, and Saturday night was, amazing. Janis Joplin, the Grateful Dead, Sly and the Family Stone. The band that was not in the movie, that was probably one of the most famous and popular bands at the time, was Creedence Clearwater Revival was there. Mm-hmm. But the management team for Creedence couldn't make the deal with the people that were doing the movie, the movie producers. The movie producers didn't want to pay them the money they wanted. Mm-hmm. So shame on them because they weren't in it. But the rest of them, that you saw all that. Well, then the sun was coming up on Sunday morning, and Grace Slick from Jefferson Airplane is playing. You've seen you've seen the scene in the movie where she says, "Morning, people. I've got breakfast in bed for 100,000, whatever." Mm-hmm. And I looked at my buddies and I said, if we don't get out of here right now, we're going to die with these people. There are too many people here. The restrooms were just overflowing. The radical anti-capitalists have decided that the guy was charging too much money for hamburgers, so they burned his stands down. They burned down the stands I go, well, I got your point there. You kind of made that point, but now what are we going to eat? There's just no more food. So I said, we got to go. And we fired it up, got home. I was working the morning shift at the local Ohio gas station in Canfield. And I was working for a guy named Junior Hefke. And Junior's reading the newspaper. I'm sitting on this is back when guys would pump gas for you, right? So Junior's looking at this newspaper. And he put it down. He goes, Dixie, he goes, were you at this thing they're talking about in the newspaper? I go, yeah, I was, Junior. He goes, you know what? I go, what, Junior? He goes, they should have dropped the bomb when they had all you assholes in football. And I go, Junior, rest in peace. I will tell that story for the rest of my life, what you just said. So that was the deal. I did that, and then 69 opened up had the motorcycle shop, then I had the van. But in 1974, my other claim to fame was we went out, Marianne and I and some of our buddies took our motorcycles out on trailers, our dirt bikes, and I stood on the rim of the Snake River Canyon and saw Evel Knievel put the rocket ship in.
That would have been awesome.
That was a scene. That was a build up to a kind of a letdown if you read about it.
Yeah.
If you saw it or you've seen tapes of it. But my good Evel Knievel story there was Knievel had put out a press release or told all of his fans that he was going to have $1 million party at Snake River Canyon in Twin Falls. So a lot of people went. That wasn't the only reason we went, but that was kind of interesting. He's going to have $1 million party. And the bikers were in town. A lot of them came from California. And each day people would go, when's the party? When are they going to have this $1 million bash? Well, on Thursday, Knievel was on the back of a pickup truck in the bed, and the pickup truck was filled with like 6-packs of beer. And he's driving through the crowd, and he's throwing these 6-packs of beer out. And the biker boys go, $1 million worth of party in there, dude. And somebody said, that Fridge King trailer over there is filled with beer, and it was the Junior Chamber of Commerce was selling money for something, or selling beer for something. They were raising money, and the bikers all went, our party's in that Fridge King trailer. and the guys that were renting it, they go, look, you can have the beer, don't hurt the trailer. We've got a huge deposit on this trailer. They were afraid they were going to burn it or tear it up or something. So the biker boys went in the trailer and they did the fireman's carry on the beer and handed it back to the opening, right? Hi, kitty. And we had our little encampment, and our vans and trailers were down the road from where the trailer was. And these guys were all running by, and they had cases of beer, 4 6-packs in a case. And I sat in a lawn chair and I went, wow, where'd you get the beer? And they go, over there. And I went, darn, we didn't get any. And they would throw us a 6-pack, and I would throw it to my buddy, and he put it behind the van. And I did that all day long. We had a giant pile of beer, and didn't have to tussle with all the boys inside the Fridge King. But
my evil story is I grew up in Illinois, and I always heard the story this Roger Riemann was a mechanic at most of his jumps, the local Harley guy. That ran a Harley dealership. And I was like, okay, cool story. You think it's got blown out of context, as everybody tells the story. And then George Sedlak from Rock Island, Illinois, did some paint work for him. So, okay, I believed all this, and Roger Riemann has a little mini museum, which the Harley shop just recently sold. In the corner, he had an Evel Knievel bike and some Evel Knievel stuff. It was super cool. It's like 20 minutes from where we used to live, and my dad's farm still is. So a couple of years ago, we were on the way to Salina, Kansas for the Lead Sled show. We stopped in Topeka at the Evel Knievel Museum, which just closed. They're moving it to Vegas. And seeing all the memorabilia, the interviews and stuff, and Roger Riemann, the mechanic, and George Sedlak was way more involved than even the local stories were. Like Sedlak painted like 90% of his bikes and his helmets, and it was involved in the restoration of his rig, and Roger Riemann was at like 80% of his jumps that he did. Even when he went to like Mexico City, he was there as a mechanic.
How was the tie in there between Roger fella and because Knievel was from Montana, right? I just wondered how they made the connection.
Roger Riemann was a very well-known, respected Harley mechanic and a Harley-sponsored racer. I believe he actually died racing a Harley, like a flat track thing. So he was just very well known. It's like getting the prop guy because he's a funny car tuner or something like that. Right. So that's kind of the story that it was. And when we read and seen all the interviews and stuff at the Evel Knievel Museum, it was kind of the same. That's why.
Well, I contend that he pulled the chute. I don't know if you've ever watched it.
I have, yeah.
We were standing there. I mean, it was the climax to a wild week, and Sunday morning, and we're all kind of standing there at the edge of the rim. They had a little fence, and we're all kind of looking down, looking up, and I go, "Well, there's no way he's not going to do this. That's not a motorcycle. That's a rocket." I mean, I was thinking it was going to be a motorcycle. It was a rocket on 2 wheels, and what happened was, it went off, and I swear it rolled like this, and my take on it was he saw the rim on the other side, the wall, and I thought he pulled the chute. They still contend that the chute deployed as soon as he left the ramp, but I don't know. I was just I'd been partying all week, so I didn't know. I just said, "Well, that's over. Let's go."
I kind of think that he did that. He wasn't the smartest on saying, "Hey, I might die doing this," because all the accidents he had, but. I mean, I could see it both ways with it popping out, but I could also see him. I don't want to slam into the face of the other wall. Yeah, I don't.
He was lucky as we saw it come down, and you've seen the footage. It went up, and we're all going like this, and we went and we looked down, and he was so close to the river. I mean, there was a river down there, but he hit the bank, and he was probably, I don't know, hard to guess because we were pretty high up, but it was probably 10, 20 feet. But if he would have been further along, he would have gone down in the creek.
Yeah.
And
And
who
that was
knows? Who knows what happened?
50
What
years
happened.
ago, right? Because they just had a 50th anniversary this summer that
Right.
Mikey went.
Right. 1974.
Whether it was the biggest failure they said ever, but 50 years later, we're still talking about it. So he did what he set out to do. So
For sure.
Yeah.
That's right. So we did custom vans, and that was the heyday of the custom van stuff. Now, are we to the point where you're kind of getting involved a little bit, Tim, or no? Were you around for the custom van era?
my aunt, my mom's sister, Aunt Bev, her husband had a custom van. They would go to van ins. I never went to a van show around small town Midwest that we were at. I forget where she went, but I remember seeing she come back with the dash plaque and some T-shirts and stuff. She had this gold Chevy van that was all done up, and it was like Indian motif, and and Indians on the side. Beautiful airbrush work. I still got pictures of it with me and my cousins pretending that we're holding the gun that was on the side, and yeah. So I don't know.
Oh, it was a wild time. We had a good friend of mine, still one of my best friends in the world. Guy Shively is a fantastic artist and pinstriper and letterer, and he worked with us at the van shop. And that was the era of bare-breasted women whipping polar bears on the side of the van, the Frank Frazetta murals that they had, and it was a fun time. You probably weren't allowed to go to the truck-ins. Those were kind of a no-kid zone.
We went to a Hemmings party at SEMA, and it was at the Sosa Metalworks, and they always have some really cool 70s choppers. Then this year they had a bunch of custom vans in the parking lot, and one all opened up so you could get in and get your picture taken. So it was pretty cool, the shag carpeting and everything.
You know who was really big to tie it into our hobby now of the hot rods, or our business of the hot rods, is Terry Cook. You know Terry Cook?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Terry Cook was editor of Hot Rod Magazine. Terry was actually, under an assumed name, the editor of Vans and Trucks magazine at the same time that he was an editor for Hot Rod, but he didn't want the people at Peterson to know that he was doing a van magazine. So he pulled that scam off for about 6 months. But his magazine, Vans and Trucks, was a good magazine, and it was more of a, I guess I'd call it more of a culture thing, like some of the Rockabilly Boys with their retro choppers now. This was more of a cultural thing than we were bolting fiberglass fender flares onto Chevy vans and putting porthole windows in and things. Nothing that was really extravagant in terms of the level of quality and work that we see in hot rods and custom cars now. Really wasn't in the vans. It was pretty easy to bolt that stuff on. The one that changed everything, there was a fella named Greg of Akron, and Greg of Akron had a van called Flying Eagle 2, and it doesn't mean anything unless some of your viewers or old vanners, they'll know what Flying Eagle and Flying Eagle 2 was. But he changed everything because he was a custom car guy, and he brought in, hey, let's take off the door handles, let's shave the drip rails, let's mold things in, let's do classic paint work, some overlays and things, and so that kind of changed it a little bit. But the van stuff was hot. We opened up Ohio Van and Truck Supply in 1976, and I started Classic Automobilia. Classic Transportation is what you know me for with the collectibles. I started that in 1989, and just to kind of swing this to Vogley and Street Rodder Magazine, I always liked collectibles. I know you guys do too. I was big in the pedal cars.
She doesn't. I do.
Here's the trick, Tim. There's a little trick to this. What you do is you sell one of those collectibles and take the money and just give her half of it and go, here, honey, you work as hard as I do every day.
I don't know that
maybe it'll work. Does he do that?
He doesn't understand the term sell.
No. I've been finally going through my magazine collection. I have a huge print magazine collection, and I realized that I have a lot of duplicates, triples, and quadruples of a lot of 50s, 60s, 70s hot rod magazines and a bunch of other stuff. So I am going to be, yeah.
Well, the problem that you're going to have, and you've probably figured this out already, during the pandemic, I started another company called the Hot Rod Paper Company because I realized, like you, I had a lot of magazines. So I jumped on eBay, nothing else to do. I have a 50 by 80 foot building here, and on my property at home, and then I've got the van shop building, and it's just filled with stuff, like so many of us older guys. So I started to load the magazines on eBay, and I started with my custom van magazines that I had from the van shop, and my skateboard magazines from 1966, 1967, and 1968. Home runs. I mean, $100 for the skateboard magazine. Who thought? Who knew? Van magazines, 25, $30 a piece. So I thought, well, I'll start doing this for a living. So I did a couple of interviews, and they posted it up on the Street Rodder website about the Hot Rod Paper Company. So I started to get a lot of calls. I've got probably 50,000 magazines.
Oh, wow.
I've got way too many magazines. And here's what happened. I get calls every week still, because if you Google vintage hot rod magazines, mine amongst other names, mine will come up. I'll get a call. Hi, my father passed away last year, and he had a bunch of magazines, and he said that they were worth a lot of money, and they're all in boxes in the garage, and we got to move out of the house, and at that point, you have to say, unfortunately, now there are so many magazines coming out of the woodwork that the market is flooded. And how do you tactfully say, if your dad would have died 25 years ago, they were worth a lot of money? That's just not cool. So I don't do that. But that's what it comes down to. And in general, the cost to ship magazines is more than the value of the magazine.
Yeah, I just recently bought a big collection up by Milwaukee. Luckily, I had a buddy that lived close. He went and picked them up. A month later, he was coming to Florida. So he goes, I'll drop them off for you. I made her pay for them on PayPal before I told him what she was paying for, because I don't know how to run the PayPal account. And these were like up till modern hot rods, and started, there was, I don't know, early 50s, and half of them in the binders.
Oh, yeah.
Over
Binders.
400 issues of magazines. And I was messaging this guy. He was selling them for his dad. His dad was old. His dad wanted him to go to a good home. Didn't want a guy going to the swap meet and selling his collection. So I talked to him back and forth. And yeah, my buddy said he'll go pick it up. I paid $200 for them because they didn't want to piece them out.
Right.
And you can't ship them. And nobody has room for that much stuff unless they have buildings like we do in my shop.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. So I need more binders. That's what I need. I need binders. So, and then I realized I got the Gary Heights from Heights Suspension Collection.
Oh, Gary, sure.
I got another local drag race guy, Ron Hopes. My uncle is the one that got me collecting. And I'm missing like early street rodders and early like popular hot roddings. My uncle, my great uncle, he's like, oh yeah, I got them upstairs. And, I have duplicates of all Rod and Custom little pages. And way too.
Well,
now, can I change what I said before? Magazines are really valuable, Tim, and you need to get a hold of me after this interview, because I have some that I'm going to sell to you. Okay.
I come across stuff weirdly like that, and people give a bunch of magazines to Steve Tracy at Advanced Plating, and then he'll go through them, and then he'll give them to me. And then he's got some other ones, earlier ones that he says he's got saved for me. Same thing, Gary Heights kept his early ones.
Yeah.
Because I don't have all the first 2 years of hot rods. I have some, but I don't have all the first 2 years.
The first six are the money issues of hot rod. January 1948 through June of 1948.
Yeah, I had a guy that offered me the first 2 years for $4,000. I am not doing that.
No. Now, once it gets past July of 1948, 48s are right now $25 a piece. 50s maybe $20. But the first six are good. Now I'm going to tell you a bit of trivia, and I'm going to tell you this because I've already got my copies. But generally, any any magazine that you're collecting, volume 1, number 1 is the valuable one.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hard one to get, right? That's the one you want. And the same is true with Hot Rod Magazine. That's a volume 1, number 1 in good condition without any holes punched and not being the fake ones. And, the fake ones are smaller. The real ones are a little bit bigger, about 3/4 of an inch taller. It's $1,000 item.
Yeah, I finally got the first issue of Rodder's Journal that I was missing. I'm still missing a couple of the early. I got that really good deal from Josh Mishler. My most expensive magazine I probably bought is the first issue of BMX Action magazine. I've had that.
A BMX guy.
Yeah, I've had that one since we still lived in Illinois, and I paid $120 for that one back. You paid for it on eBay, and they're like,
"Don't you remember that, Carrie?"
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm that good wife that he says, "Hey, I need you to pay this guy $200," and I go, "Okay," and I do it. I don't ask questions. Start asking questions.
There you go. They don't make them like that anymore.
It's not like I'm asking for something over $1,000.
I think it's like car parts that he needs. So I'm like, yeah, absolutely. We're gonna take care of this so you can keep building those cars.
Right. Well, volume 1, number 1 is $1,000 magazine if it doesn't have holes punched in it and it's all intact. Number 2, February of 1948, is much rarer than volume 1. And I didn't know why, and I got explained to it by the late, great Too Tall Pat Ganal, who collected stuff too. Bob Peterson and his business partner decided to publish Hot Rod. They had enough money to print a run of the January issue, and they sold them, in a famous story, they sold them at the car show, the first Hot Rod show in Los Angeles. They sold them there. But printing took so long, it wasn't like instantaneous. Amazon can print a catalog overnight and ship it to you, a book overnight. But then, offset printing, and it took a while. They had invested all of their money, or almost all their money, in the January issue, but they had to go to press and commit on the February before they sold the January issues. So they didn't have a lot of money. So the number of Februaries is much lower than the Januaries. I've got 2 Februaries. I paid up. I paid $500 a piece for those, but they don't come up very often. I think you're going to see more of them shake out now as that generation of hoarders kind of.
I'll tell you how I got my early ones.
Said hoarders.
Yeah, hoarders. It's not hoarding if your stuff is cool.
There you go. That's exactly right.
Which I'm blank on his name. I feel really bad. The guy from Iowa that started and ran Chassis Engineering. The suspension company.
Yeah, I know who you're talking. I know exactly who you're talking about. I can picture him in my mind. Yeah.
And my buddy used to do their sway bars for him in Illinois. And then when the guy passed away, his daughter ran the business for a couple years. It was just too depressing. She closed it, sold stuff off. So I was home in Illinois between Christmas and New Year's, and we went over to see because they had chassis tables and welders and all this stuff and extra parts.
Roy.
Yeah.
Roy something.
Yeah, he still holds a record at Bonneville for a diesel streamliner.
Right.
And she's donating that to some car museum in Iowa to have on display. But we're in there, the roof's starting to come down and everything, and they've been scoop shoveling stuff, and I go over in the pile, and they weren't worth saving, was the early issues of Hot Rod. And I'm like, what are you doing with that? She goes, oh, we're just throwing that away. Are you interested in it? I go, yes, don't throw anything else. If they're not water damaged, I will take them. So about 4 months later, my buddy that, was doing their sway bars, he shows up, comes down to Tennessee to visit me with a pickup bed full of stuff. And that's where I got all my early, the first 10 years of Hot Rods came from that, and some crazy vintage books. And I have a bunch of, which I don't really collect.
I think I blocked that out.
Well, they were free.
Oh, okay.
Popular mechanics and early motor trends I don't really collect. So yeah, I'm kind of keeping the cool ones. Like there was a cover with like Larry Watson cars on it. I'm like, oh, I'm keeping that one, but I'm not going to keep and collect all those. But I'm currently putting an organized library so I can go and pull them out. Oh, here's this car we're trying to recreate or something like that. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Jeez. Mhm. Mhm. Wow. Yeah. 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 About what year was this? Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like the stories of all the different stuff you collect. Doesn't make me look as bad, does it, honey? Yeah, I got a couple buddies that collect. My good friend Zane Cullen, and he's organizing his. Yeah, yep, yep. We trade stuff back and forth to fill slots in our collection. So
But his wife also collects Christmas stuff like I do. So.
yeah, our both of our wives are Christmas. Nope. Yeah, I need like 5 total issues of, I think. So. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So who owned the magazines then? Was that still McMullen or was that McMullen Yee by that time? Okay.
Right.
Was that the first one? Oh, okay, I remember. And for people that don't know, that time, I mean, they're still big. Louisville Street Rod Nationals is still incredible. NSRA was like it for all. I mean, Good Guys was still about 10 years old at this part. You know, there's Super Chevy shows that were really good then, but the NSRA shows, they were like it for the industry. There's way more events and event companies now. And I remember I heard Chris Coddington does a great podcast, the son of Boyd Coddington, and they interviewed, I think it was Larry Erickson that designed Cadzilla. And he says that was actually a discussion because that car is a 1949 that didn't fit in the 48 and older year break. And they're like, where can we even show this car? Because it's a 1949. Well, NSRA let us in a vendor booth, which they did. And that was actually a discussion because it was a hardcore 48 and older cutoff line. Mm-hmm. 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 I think that's what Triple Crown cuts off at 72. I think, don't they? Oh, you can bring a newer truck. Yeah. So did you have a requirement every year on like the seat has to have this much padding in it or something? Did you give anybody like that's a lot, man? Like a semi driver has to have a comfortable seat. So I mean, you don't want to ride in a bomber seat that much time. Hmm. So how many years was this? The next year, the second year, or was okay? And you said the first year that was that a steel car, Outlaw or Downs or something? Okay. Yeah. 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 I can't. Okay. Hmm. Was it a P and J body? Was that right? Was it P and J? She's gonna
I'm gonna
Google it.
see if I can find
She's gonna find it. See,
it.
we'll go on. She's gonna see if she can Google it. Oh, awesome. Wow. Mm-hmm. How many years did Lobeck build? Did he build the next one too, or did you instantly start using different builders each year? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, without saying which car, did you blow up a motor? Did you blow up a transmission? Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I learned that. I had a college $800 beater. I drive to auto body school in Iowa every day, and I learned that the morning I blew up my '68 Dodge Polara, red with white interior, two door with folding headlights. $800 out of the front line of Maury's Junkyard in Cambridge, Illinois. Well, no, they closed. Some of my buddies were on their shows. They closed the production. That was the building where they filmed those shows on Motor Trend. That only about five of them. Ian Johnson did a good video. So Ian's show is on Motor Trend. He's still filming because his studio is not far from us here. So the channel's not going away. This is as today's stuff. The Motor Trend production facility is getting closed, where Alex Taylor and Lucky did the Hot Rod Garage. They did a few other things there, and then that production company did Roadkill and stuff, which most people are paying attention, kind of seeing the writing on the wall when Finnegan and Freiberger really been pushing their YouTube channels. And but yeah, because like Ian, his show's on Motor Trend, but he doesn't use Motor Trend production. He does it himself. And then there's other shows that have, like Pilgrim Productions does stuff, which always did Pilgrim. I think has always did rides, did the Boyd Coddington show. So that company's still out there and they still film shows, but they are slowing down on their shows. But those five shows that Motor Trend themselves production company filmed are getting dropped. Yeah. It was great because I didn't watch it much. I'm friends with both of them. I've known them for a long time. We met Freiberger in 2001. He was just not very high up in hot rod. He shot a car, or Riviera, wrote the article and did, that's when we met Freiberger. I've known Finnegan since almost high school from the Street Machine Nationals. So I've known these guys for a long time. And I got buddies. It's like we were at a show one time. My buddy, he does land speed racing and stuff, and he's just like a total rad hot rod guy. And he's like, "You know those guys?" I'm like, "Yeah, you want to meet him?" And he was shaking. Dude's like my age, and he was shaking. And it was like, these dudes, and I actually had to text him yesterday with a new dude. Are you okay? He goes, "Man, I'm pretty bummed." He goes, "That was my favorite show." He watched reruns, and yeah. So yeah, it really affected. But kids got into cars because they watched Roadkill. So that's the bad thing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Drawings.
Yeah, and that's what when I'm lucky I get to get on stage and do awards and get post some stuff and like the hot rod guys to me they were my and I always joke because I really always forget his name the Walter Paytons the Michael George say the shoe guy the Michael George I mean I knew who those guys were but I also lived in Illinois but I didn't watch sports I was Don Perdome was my guy and the Mongoose it was all auto stuff those guys were all my heroes and reading about Boyd Coddington and most all those guys were super cool when I met them. Everybody talks about little John was an asshole and Boyd was and Fat Jack. Those guys were all super rad to me when I met them. But then we kind of realized maybe just assholes stick together. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, yeah. I got along with a lot of those guys. I mean, I weren't best friends with them, but I'd see them at shows, and Boyd would remember me. Boyd had a standing job offer that I could move to California, and I was like, I can move into California. So
They're all just people that get out of bed,
yeah,
put their pants on the same way we all do.
yeah, yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you always
mm-hmm.
have to be on. Mm-hmm.
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 Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, mm-hmm. Yep. Great fabricators. A couple of years ago we had them build a chassis for us. I mean, you can't. Yeah, great guys. Oh wow. My dad always said that there was a guy that was a good welder, and I'll censor this a little bit. He said he could weld your penis to a flagpole and not burn the skin. I said penis. Yeah. That was clean, if you know my dad. Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Oh yes. Impala. Was it a 60? Yeah, it was a 60. Yep. Yeah. No, his crew is incredible. Yeah. Hmm. 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 What was the body on the black car? Because fiberglass bodies were nobody's really making that. I guess there's a few that. You remember what body that was on that one? You never found
I
it?
didn't find it.
Oh wow.
find it either.
I know, it kept taking me to eBay, and then there's nothing listed as far as the details. I know, right? Is it 1996?
Yeah.
It brings up the eBay listings.
Yeah, but it's not listed in the. It's the skunk.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because people are screaming at us right now, so we have to find this answer.
You can buy the magazine all over eBay, and some of them are probably Jerry's that he's selling.
Probably.
Because they say everything goes on the internet and stays forever on Motor Trend. Well, I'm going to disagree because there's a lot of stuff that's not on their hotrod.com anymore. Yeah. Heritage was from Illinois. It wasn't Heritage, right? Rat's Glass was Tennessee. Anyway.
I'm going to keep looking. Now I'm focused.
So let's talk about one of the memorable road tour cars. You talk about crazy stuff happening on the road. This car you didn't drive it very far. It didn't finish the year. The Fairlane that Hot Rods by Dean built got stolen out of the parking lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that whole tail light warning, which when the tail lights go away, it warns up. Yeah, we're fine. Mm-hmm. 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 No, every car you build definitely got some shakeout bugs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. 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 And and a lot of customers don't really realize that, but sometimes you can get faulty parts that you have to take off, get a warranty part, and put another part on. That happens. That happens more anymore. I see with all the manufacturing. There's quality controls down a little bit on stuff. So, but, hmm. 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 Yeah. Good. Mm. So, what was the feeling when you walked out when that Fairlane got stolen? And you're like, "Oh, maybe I parked it on the other side of the hotel." What was that feeling when you realized it's not here? And how did that call go to the powers that be? Hmm.
Redneck street rods. Redneck street rods. Actually, I found it on hotrod.com. Good job, Hot Rod.
I guess it's still.
Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie's boss had their dually stolen at the PRI show in Indianapolis one time, and got his Ford dually stolen. And we had that same vibe that we think somebody there,
The front desk of the
front
hotel.
desk or something, called, and
Yep.
yeah, and that everything was
Yeah.
gone. And within before we even left town, somebody found it on a.
So that was on a Tuesday, like on a Monday or Tuesday when he got there for PRI, and then we went up. That's when we were still doing the
The go-kart
go-karting thing. And that Thursday night, they got a tip from the police that was a ring going on in town, and it was not too far from the go-karting track.
Mhm.
That they knew the truck was there, and
it was then like
stripped.
yeah, it was like the bed because it had a special kind of bed cover on it. The bed was still on the frame. Cab was gone. Like 3 days later, it was stripped, and nobody got in trouble for it. They didn't chase it. So no, it was just his dually that he drove. No truck and trailer, no show car. They would just drove his dually up for the PRI show, and they stole the dually out of the parking lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, it did.
Yeah.
Troy was on a. It was either the Roadster Shop podcast or the Chris Coddington when they talk about it. That every once in a while for years, because they were in Canada, so it took forever for the insurance to settle. And that was another car. You know, everything on a Rad Rights car is one off. Even the calipers and the wheels were all one off. And you couldn't park the car out and make money off of it. And they would get like a disguised voice asking for ransom. We'll tell you where this car is. And finally, they're like, well, insurance settled, and like it was over 10 years that they finally got a call at the shop and say, "Hey, you guys missing a car?" Like, yeah, it's like, oh, I forget where they found it. I think it was still in Canada or something.
So.
But like, everything was still there. The front end was off. There was scratches, and I don't know how it ended up. But they have the car in Illinois. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but yeah, it's scratched up. The wheels were there. I think the motor was still there, or maybe the motor was gone, but most everything was still there. But yeah. The dark blue, Jeff Bro. Yeah, Jeff Bro. Hmm. Yep. Hmm. Yep. Hmm. Hmm. So my story, I have a quick little story. I'm not going to tell everybody's names, but there's a collector guy that I know that they called him to go. Another guy had him come up and look at those cars to buy them because they have almost 500 cars in their collections on a couple locations. So they went and looked at it, and I always knew they weren't custom street rod. They like muscle cars, hot rods, a few other famous builder cars, and that was just out of their wheelhouse. That when they looked at the Smoothster, that AMBR, what three fiberglass body companies sprung up. It was a diecast car. The diecast car is right over there on the wall of that car. And he goes, I just didn't want to spend the money on it. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, it would take too much to have new wheels built, put an LS in it. And I'm just like, you're kidding me, right? You would not update a past AMBR car. Yeah. Hmm. 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 And what I go for like 208 or something like that? Went for like 208,000 or something, didn't it? Hmm. Oh my god. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
And then,
Yep.
yeah, before he retired, he was driving for McGuire's.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which, when that won the Riddler, uh, George Poteet owned it when it won the Riddler. And then when it went and it won the AMBR the next year, Mike Young was his last name. Poteet had sold it before then. And like Roger Berman did that when we interviewed Berman. He won the Riddler. Yeah,
Mhm.
we
Oh
did.
yeah.
I've known Roger since I was 17, and we haven't looked at the numbers for a while, but there for a little bit. People are finding the earlier issues, so the numbers are climbing on them. Roger was like in the first 2 weeks, the highest in the first 2 weeks we've had because he just don't do interviews. And we got him. His wife said, "I can't believe you got him to agree to this." She set it all up and sat him in front, and yeah, we got Berman for almost 2 hours. It was a great interview. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I'll put Berman up to anything about his work ethic, his hustle, the amount of accolades, magazines, and list of awards that guy has won. About the only thing he hasn't won is Street Route of the Year from Good Guys. He's won all the other of the year Good Guys and AMBR and Riddler and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and he's got a great story because he raced Supercross when he was young, and he raced Honda factory three wheelers when three wheelers were still legal. I mean, he's yeah, he's that's why his knees are all messed up. Yeah, like Roger was like a superstar type of racer guy. That's why he don't care about trying to beat his chest and marketing and trying to be famous or nothing. He just wants to build the cars, let the cars speak for themselves. He goes, I've been there. I've already done that. So of, of all the road tour cars, do you have a favorite of which one do you like? Okay. My next question is which one was the most comfortable? So I'm going to assume a bigger car with windows and air conditioning. No, the blue one. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 59. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, okay. Wow. You see, Good Guys has always done road tour cars too. And what wasn't one of their giveaway cars? When Ed Capon worked there, I think it was shortly after um, Gary Metters passed away. He drove Gary's Steve Mole built yellow with the track nose on it. Phenomenal car. Drove it from like California on their tour going to like Des Moines and Columbus. And Ed was always a Camaro guy, a street machine guy. And he goes, man, I earned my Roadster badge. I drove that thing with no top across it. He goes, I don't know how all these old guys do it. I ain't ever doing that. Give me a top, windows, and air conditioning. He said. So he goes, I did it. I earned my Roadster cross country badge. So, mm-hmm. Mm. I'm sure I have. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. 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 It's incredible. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm helping get one that lives in Nashville area that Steve Mole built and Daryl Hollenbeck painted. It was Seduced that Paul Hansen won in '06, I think. They live here now. Yeah, I'm trying to get it running for him. I got to take a battery back and helping her get transport because Paul don't. He's passed away. So I built other cars for their family. So I was like, yeah, I didn't build this car, but it needs to be there. There's one for a memory of Paul, and it's a past AMBR car, very significant. You know, supposedly the last set of Little John wheels ever built. It's got a bunch of stuff in it. So yeah, so I'm helping get that going. So it, mm-hmm. Yep, yep,
Amen.
yeah, yeah. 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 Every year, me and my buddies talk about, okay, we're going to start looking for a house. We rent a house now. And like almost every year, Carrie goes, "You're going again?" Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because she has to go out. Well, it's a week off this year. And she has to work at King of the Hammers out in the desert, the off road event. She has to work there. And this year, and she showed up at the Roadster show on like Saturday last year looking like a desert dweller because she'd been living in the desert for, and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do they do if they don't have a Facebook page? Because I currently, I'm not going to come on the bus, but I want to make sure people. Um, I have got my Facebook stolen like 3 weeks ago and haven't got it back yet. So I am currently not on Facebook, so I can't see stuff. Is there a website? Okay, say that one more time for everybody. Well, long as you give Tim credit, I've known him for a long time. He's a great guy, so I like to give him a hard time. He's also got some of the best hair in hot rodding. Mm-hmm. I know it's hard to believe, but Bob Larrabee, we're supposed to get him on the podcast the first week of December. When his daughter's there still after Thanksgiving, I talked to him at the SEMA show. Larrabee, his daughter's going to sit him down like we've done with a few other people, and I'm going to interview Larrabee on the podcast. So that'll be a great interview. Yep. Yep. Yeah. I supported him at SEMA again. I went and bought. He had a stack of Ed Pink books that Ed had signed, and I bought a couple more Robert Williams posters that Robert had signed. So he always got. And Dave Shutton always says, "Where'd you get that one from?" And I go, "I got it from Larrabee." He goes, "Okay, it's legit signature then. Larrabee's got true stuff." He goes, "There's some stuff out there that have fake signatures on them." Mm-hmm. Oh, I think it's. Oh wow. Wow. We talk about ISCA days. Carrie says we need to start wrapping it up because our program some shuts off about this time. Um, we where was I going with that? Oh, we interviewed Jack Walker, and he talked in when he was hauling all the feature cars for ISCA. Oh yeah, yeah, it was great. So he's about out. He's been selling it, and he sold the 55 project to a guy in Kentucky during the Tri Five Nationals. He brought a whole van load of stuff up to the guys. Bought a bunch of his collection. Most of his stuff off the shop walls are down and sold. He supposedly got. He's oh my. Oh, cool.
Taking notes.
Yeah, there was when we did Wings. I was like, man, I used to hang out in the parking lots with Wings, and he'd tell me all these crazy stories. And I go, man, when we interviewed him, I go, you got to tell me some of them stories. He goes, parking lot stories, stay in the parking lot. He says, I can't throw my under the bus. He said, yeah, yeah. That's what they say. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in the parking lot at a rod run stays in the parking lot. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate it. So, this week's guest on the Strange Motion Way, we want to thank Jerry Dixey. And again, one more time for the bus tour, give them your website. Mm-hmm. Okay, we got a spare bedroom. Just as long as you don't. I had a buddy that stayed there recently, and he goes, "Man, I didn't sleep very good." It was my buddy that brought the magazines down. I go, "Why?" He says, "Because I had to open all the Hot Wheels that were in their cases," and I'm like, "Oh, you didn't do that. You didn't do that."
Our spare room looks like a 2-year-old's room.
No, it looks like a teenage boy. There's punk rock, signed punk rock on the walls. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. Okay.
I think you're breaking up.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry.
All right.
The Strange Motion Way podcast, brought to you by Royal Purple Synthetic Oils.
Royal Purple premium synthetic motor oils and high-performance chemicals have been designed to improve performance in all conditions and provide cleaner operation, better mileage, and decreased oil change frequency. That means less oil changes. With products available for your gasoline and diesel engines, Royal Purple is the obvious choice for your performance needs. Drive with Royal Purple, the synthetic expert.